All right, good evening, everyone attending this evening. Want to welcome you all to our Visalia Unified Vaping webinar. This is an awareness and prevention event hosted by Visalia Unified, but also in partnership with several partner organizations here in our local area. My name is Frank Escobar, and I'm Director of Student Services here for Visalia Unified School District, and I will be your host for this evening's webinar. Again, we want to thank everyone for making the time to be with us today. We know we are all living very busy lives, and there's lots to do, and so we do appreciate you taking the time to be here with us. Just a couple of quick recognitions I want to make before we get started here. As I mentioned, we have several partner organizations that are here with us this evening. They are our experts in the field of tobacco, drug, alcohol prevention, and we'll be doing the sharing of information this evening. So with us, we have the California Health Collaborative, we have Recovery Resources, and we have the Tulare County Office of Education Choices Office that are all part of our presentation this evening. Here's a quick rundown of our agenda this evening. We are going to be having our primary presentation by the California Health Collaborative, that is the facts and impacts of teen vaping. We also have
usar los cigarrillos electrónicos. Vamos a escuchar también un poco de un padre que ha experimentado
with us this evening her experience as a parent with a student who was involved in vaping, and I think we'll all kind of get a lot of information out of that from one parent to another, so to speak. We'll also hear a little bit of what we do as a district and what an organization does that works in the substance provider field of providing treatment and support to students that have incidences or that are having issues with vaping and other substance use. And then we're going to move into partner presentations. So we have a couple of partners that are going to share some of the other efforts that they have going on within the community, the work that they're doing and how that work is going and who they're working with to do that. And then we're going to move into our Q&A session. And this will be the opportunity this evening where all of you will be able to share with us any questions that you might have based on what you heard this evening or otherwise. And our panelists, the experts that are here with us this evening, will gladly answer those for you. And then we'll close. So that's kind of what our agenda looks like this evening. I do want to share with you before we get started is that we have a website and a web page for the vaping webinar in which we will be sharing all of our webinar resources with you this evening. So I'm going to ask at this time for one of our committee members to post in the Q&A session our VUSD website link to the vaping webinar page. And so as you so choose at your own convenience, feel free to click on that and you can go into that page and you can see the various handouts and information resources that are available to you through this webinar. And also want to mention that we will be recording this webinar and we will then be posting the link in that web page as well after the fact. So if you know of somebody who wanted to join tonight, just wasn't able to, feel free to send them the link to the web page and let them know that the recording is there and they can go at their convenience and listen to it. So all right, at this time, we want to go ahead and start with our formal presentation. And so I'm going to ask one of our colleagues, of our committee members from the California Health Collaborative to go ahead and take the floor at this time. Bao, I think you might want to unmute for us, if you don't mind. And I think you're going to be sharing our presentation here. And we do appreciate everyone's patience.
All right, right when I had switched over to shared screen, my computer froze, so I like panicked.
Of course, right? That's how it always happens.
All right, so can everybody see the screen okay? Yes, all right. So we'll go ahead and get started. I'm sorry, my computer is really glitchy. I had shut it down for a good hour just so that this won't happen. But good evening, everyone. My name is Belle, Program Manager with the California Health Collaborative. And I do want to take this moment and thank everyone for being here and investing your time in this very, very important topic. So I will be covering the facts and impacts of vaping, like Frank mentioned, and what we can do to combat this issue that expert has unfortunately addressed as an epidemic. So quickly here, before I move into the presentation, I just want to quickly talk about CHC. We were founded back in 1982 in Fresno. We're a nonprofit organization with offices throughout the state and with the mission of improving the health and wellness of Californians, but especially the underserved and the underrepresented. So a huge part of the work that we do comes from partnering up with youth and the community, and that is to build healthier communities, which at the end of this presentation, I will cover the work that's currently being done in partnership with local youth advocates here in Visalia to combat the vaping epidemic. All right, so tonight we will be covering a topic that I've mentioned unfortunately have taken us all through a storm, and that is youth tobacco and vaping, which remains at epidemic levels today since 2018. So what is vaping? So vaping is the act of inhaling the e-cigarette, which produces an aerosol like what you see here. It's done by heating the coil through the device that heats up the liquid like nicotine, which is the addictive drug in regular cigarettes, cigar, and other tobacco product. So just a question here, and just make a mental note. What do you think is the current legal age to use e-cigarette in the state of California? So just put that number in your head. So the legal age in the state is 21, and it has been 21 since 2016. And in fact, it's actually now the legal age nationwide since last year. So a lot of people don't know that. They think it's 18, but it's 21. So here on this slide, this I think might be a few of the data that we will be showing you. I know data is a lot of fun. But it moves our work. So on this slide, we want you to see the rise in youth vaping use. And we're comparing it in just a year time frame. So 2017 and 18. And you can see here a 78% increase among high school students and a 48% increase among middle school students. So the popularity with these devices among our young people, you'll start to see why it has become as popular as it is today. So here, why the concern for youth and tobacco use? Well, it's very concerning because for many reasons, and a few of them being the brain's peak period for developing addiction starts in adolescent years. So the initiation of substance abuse before the age of 14, they have a 34% prevalence rate of lifetime substance use. So that meaning that youth who are using at a young age are more prone to experience a lifelong addiction. So knowing that, we know that this is true because studies have shown that adults that are current smokers, roughly 86 to 87% of them start before the age of 18. Young people are very vulnerable. They are exposed to peer pressure, and since their brain's not fully developed, they are more prone to making risky decisions. So prevention is very important at this age, and educating our young people on the dangers and health impact vaping has on them early on can be very, very impactful. So nationally here, researchers have found the most commonly selected reasons for youth using e-cigarettes, and they are through seeing it through friends or family members uses them. It's at 36, 37%. They are available in different flavors. That's one of the reasons, and that's at 33, 34%. And then this one too, they are less harmful than other forms of tobacco cigarettes. So a lot of young people think that vaping is safer. So I have KC, he plugged in this data here. If you could come on mute and explain this interesting data.
Val, if I could jump in, we can see your notes.
Oh, really? Cool.
Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you for saying that. Let's see, that's okay. So let's see here. Is Casey here to explain this data or no? Is that good or no?
Yeah, that's good, Val.
That's still?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, okay. I don't see Casey coming through. So wait, will it go back? Is it going back? Tony?
No, you're good.
Okay. So this data here is interesting because it's different from the national rate, the national data. So here it's saying that Tulare students are actually 83% are saying teenagers believe vapes are safer and poses as no harm. So 83% of the students in this county believes they're safe. So with that being said, are they safer? So here I pulled it all up from CDC. No, they are not safer. This is a misconception people had about them, which led to the spike in use. So researchers from CDC are now saying they can be less harmful, although e-cigarettes are still fairly new. Scientists are still learning about their long-term health effects. So we know that the e-cigarette aerosol, so this picture shown here, the cloud-like fog produces the aerosol, but what's in it are fewer toxic than your regular cigarettes, but the toxic that has been found in e-cigarettes are things like heavy metal, lead, and cancer-causing agents in them. And so what's even more concerning is the health effects, which I will go into a little bit later. But here are some of the reasons how, some of the ways these products are being targeted towards young people. So here we have, they come in sleek, you'll see devices looking like USB drives and techie devices. They're used and advertised through social media and pop culture. They do not verify age by purchasing it online. You just go on any website, you can click juuls.com, and all you gotta say is that you're 21, and that's the age verification. They offer cheap prices, and then they have tailored flavors that I will talk a little bit more here. So quick.
Val, sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, I'm so sorry, but we can only see half of your screen. Can you pull, oh, there we go.
Oh, okay.
I think we're good now. Sorry, I had to jump in.
No, thank you, Tony. Is this good?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'm gonna click on this video here quickly so y'all can see the differences between like childlike school supplies and the actual devices. Okay, well, thank you, Tony, again. I seem to never get it right when sharing my screen with the notes. Okay, so I talked about those few reasons why, how these products are targeted to young people and kind of the reasonings why it's becoming so popular. So another reason is cheap prices. The increasing availability of cheap tobacco has hampered tobacco health efforts to discourage smoking, which is the leading cause of preventable death. So puff bars, like the photo shown here, which is an extremely popular vape product out there today, and it's as little as $6. So it's a disposable e-cigarette. They get about 300 puffs per puff bar, and then they can toss it out. And from the 300 puffs that they can get, that equals to 2 to 3 packs of cigarette. So the nicotine level in these puff bars are very, very high and potent. So there's also flavored tobacco products that could come in like cigarillo packs, 3 for 99 cents, which is very highly affordable for youth. And this is a tactic commonly used by the industry. So then another one is social media. Tobacco companies are not allowed to promote in like avenues like billboards and on TV commercial, but they find ways, trending ways through loopholes to stay relevant. So they'll go through social media influencers and pay them to share their products on social media like Instagram and Twitter and what's the other, Snapchat, all the other TikTok. There was a study done by Stanford Medicine found that teens who see more vaping products were more likely to start and had more positive opinions about vaping. So the more they see it on social media and in their neighborhoods, with their peers, the more it becomes normal. So oftentimes we also hear as a public health advocate that the tie with depression and vaping use. So we have youth that are exposed to social media and they're going through some tough times, and they become very vulnerable to their everyday connection. Sorry. And yeah, so with that being said, we have tailoring flavors here. So I've mentioned that tailor flavors to certain ethnic groups. So here we have flavors like horchata, we have flavors like chai tea latte and lychee. And then we also found online Peppa Pig on these vape juices. So it's just astounding how some of these companies go about labeling their products. So the thing that's concerning about flavored tobacco, and I've shown the data in the beginning of flavors being one of the reasons why youth use. because flavor, it cuts that harshness of tobacco. So young people are inhaling more deeply and getting higher levels of nicotine into their lungs than they would with cigarettes because of the flavor. So here, just quickly, is the map of Visalia. So Visalia has a total of, 107 tobacco stores. So you see here, the red dots are the stores, and then the yellow boxes are where the schools are located. So there are currently, if you can see, it's a little tiny, 29 stores right now near schools that are roughly about 1,000 feet away. So studies have shown that schools with more stores within walking distance of a tobacco retailer have a higher smoking prevalence than schools with fewer retailer nearby. So that's a food for thought. Let that sit in. Okay, so where are youth getting these products? Just to name a few, they're getting them through friends. We've actually heard they get them through parents. And just the thing with this is because it's just this whole misconception of it being safe. So we even have parents expressing that this is safer. And we know that, you know, people who initiate e-cigarette use, they normally would go and use traditional cigarettes, and then after traditional cigarettes, it can be other drug use and alcohol. So here we have FDA, CDC, we've been, which they have been working on tattling up the numbers and really investigating to why this issue is happening. So there is this thing called EVALI, which is a name given by CDC, and it's a newly identified lung disease linked to vaping. So EVALI stands for e-cigarette and vaping product use associated lung injury. And it's associated with vitamin E acetate, which is commonly found in cannabis THC oil. And they have been strongly linked to these EVALI breakouts. So these EVALI actually has led to thousands of deaths, and that's since, I think, 2018. I don't have the number on top of my head. I know it's like over 2,000, almost reaching in the 3,000 deaths in the United States alone. So quickly here, vaping and THC is now the most common use that we're seeing with young people. Right now, a lot of the schools, we're hearing that it's mostly THC that they find with the young people and these devices. So THC is a substance extracted from the marijuana plant. Some concentrated products like oils and waxes can come anywhere from 50 to 80% in THC. And when you're comparing that to the dry cannabis plant, it's at 10 to 15%. So these man-made cannabis oil, there's no way of telling the amount or the level of THC the youth are consuming. And so we're hearing youth with symptoms going from anxiety, paranoia, passing out, increase their frequency in use, and can lead to risk for addiction and cannabis use disorder. So the thing about cannabis use is it can have a long-lasting permanent effect. So meaning if youth are using and if there are any damages done to the brain, there's no undoing the damage. So this is a guide that is one of the most useful guide I see out there. So earlier we talked about youth developing brain and how they can be prone to lifelong addiction if they initiate any type of drug use, alcohol, cannabis. So prevention is key. So attending workshops like this, like you did today, is a good start. So shown here is the useful guide. Some of the things mentioned in the guide is having an open, ongoing dialogue instead of just that one big talk. So hear from them and what they're experiencing in their schools and in their neighborhoods, what they're seeing with vaping, having a conversation and not a lecture. So know the science. It's you know, when you could explain to them, hey, this is, you know, the impact it has on a young brain can be very, you know, it's like I've mentioned, it can be permanent. And then also blame the industry. They play a huge role in this issue, and share with your child what you learned today and how the industry targets them, like the tactics used with the different flavorings and the marketing social media tactics that they used. So know the signs. Here's just a few signs here. Artificial smell, sometimes it's hard. We get teachers telling us we can't tell the difference between vape, aerosol, because they come in different flavors. They smell like banana, strawberry. It's difficult, but that's one of the signs. Look for school supplies that look unrecognizable. Any unfamiliar charges or coil or batteries, be on the lookout for those. Here's a list of resources, and I know I'm going fast, but I want to mention that all this information, like Frank mentioned, is on the website. So this whole entire presentation, you can find it on the website. And if you hover over the presentation, it will take you directly to the links. So like if you want more information about the petition here that the local youth are collecting to protect youth from flavored tobacco, you just hover over it. If you want to know information about how to contact your local leaders, hover over this and it'll take you directly to it. And then these resources, they're all free. So California Smoker Helpline, you hover over it, click on it, it'll take you directly to it. I try to make this presentation as easy as possible, simple as possible, and this resource is available to you on the website. So that's it for me, Frank.
Val, thank you so much for that incredibly informative information in regards to the facts and impacts around vaping. And like Val said, her presentation is in the website link. So please feel free to be able to jump in there and go ahead and peruse. And like she said, you can hover over a lot of those links on her presentation, and that will allow you to be able to go directly to those links. So at this time, I'm going to transition over. I know we may have a few questions in the audience. Please, if you wouldn't mind, please go ahead and ask those via the Q&A at this point. And then when we get to the Q&A section, we'll go ahead and address any questions as well as comments. If you have some comments as well, I'll certainly read those from the Q&A as well. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and transition over to our partners with the Tulare County Office of Education in the Choices Office. We've got a bit of a special feature here where we have a recording of a parent. And so at this time, I'd like to pass it over to the Tulare County Office of Education.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Can you guys all hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize for that bow. I have some technical difficulties on me, and I meant to jump in on that slide you had introduced me on, but I apologize. But thank you for the introduction, Frank. This brief snippet, a voiceover of an interview, was an interview that was conducted with a concerned VUSD parent. I will keep their identity anonymous for their sake, but this was an interview that was conducted with me with a concerned VUSD parent who reached out to our office through a friend she had in law enforcement. And I just believe that her testimony is a pretty powerful statement, and I believe that it is something that can be helpful and informational for some of you parents out there who may have teenage students in school that may be possibly showing signs of possible use. So hopefully this snippet of this interview can be a bit of helpful information for you guys. So I'll go ahead and play this voiceover for you.
I'm a parent of two Visalia Unified students, and my husband and I are both teachers in Visalia Unified. And our children have attended all the way through from elementary school, middle school, and high school. Son started using tobacco, vaping, was vaping He started doing that in middle school, in 8th grade. And it really came as quite a surprise to my husband and myself, because we are very involved parents, and we've always made a point to communicate, have open lines of communication with our children, and to let them know that we would prefer to know if there's things that if they're not making the best choices. Of course, that's not preferable, but we understand, and we're going to work with them to try to help them, to guide them along. When we found out, that was freshman year, and he said that at that point he had already been doing it for a year, and that he was, I don't think he admitted that he was addicted, because, well, he did actually, I think he did. Because he said it was, too hard to stop at that point. He had been doing it for too long. And the way that he got introduced to it, what in 8th grade, was in the bathrooms. He said that they would, there was always a kid that had one, and they would do it in the bathrooms, and they would just, their friends would either share with them, or they would pay like $1 for as much as they could vape during a break between classes. And then the break during the next class, they'd hit up a different friend and pay $1. and I'm very astute. Like I really notice changes in, like my kids, if their moods or their whatever it might be. Like I'm pretty aware of those things. And there was never anything that even looking back, on it, like, oh, we these different clues, except for actually there is one. I take that back. There is one thing, and that is, I do recall that after school there were many times when he said he had to stay, or he'd be late. I'd be there to pick him up from school, and he wouldn't come out right away. He'd be like maybe 15 minutes late, or whatever. And I did find out later that that was why. Or sometimes he would say, like, if they were in sports teams, which my son's very athletic, so he was always in a different sport. And sometimes, he would say, well, the coach called a last minute meeting. And, as parents, we didn't have a way of verifying that or not. And it would be like a meeting after practice. So we knew they were going to be there for practice, but it was like, oh, an extra, like 10 or 15 minutes. And so those types of situations would, I think, occur frequently. This is one thing I think that's really important to share with parents, is that we drug tested our son. His test kept coming back clean, and we were thrilled. We were like, wow, this is great. And then we just started like seeing signs of him that we thought maybe he was high. And we're like, how is he having clean drug tests if he might be high? But this is how we're going to do the drug test. And we did it that way. And this went on for probably a year and a half. And he beat the drug test the whole time. And it wasn't until probably a year and a half that finally we told him, we said, we know that you're under the influence. We don't know how you're beating the test, but we know you're under the influence. And he told us, he said, well, the way I've been beating the test is I've had this little vial of clean urine that I keep on me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that anytime you guys drug test me, I can use that and put that into the cup, and that's the urine that you'll test, and it'll always come back clean. It's important for parents to be aware what these products look like, first of all, so that you can identify them if you see them, but also just to be aware of how small they are, because students can hide them anywhere, and it would be so difficult to find them.
Okay, great. Yeah, so like I said, I just hope that that parent testimony, again, that was just a piece of our conversation that we had recorded right there. But again, hopefully that's some helpful information for some of you parents out there to maybe just be aware of some of the warning signs of some of your with your student if you notice a change, certain changes in their behavior here or there, just kind of letting her testimony be of reference to you guys.
Casey, I want to thank you and the County Office of Ed for taking the time and the effort to meet with the parent, do the interview and record it. And we completely respect the fact that she wanted to remain anonymous for those reasons. And so, but we're appreciative that she was willing to share that with our attendees today. And I did want to real quickly just mention that any Q&A questions that come through, we do want to get to them, but we're going to leave that for the Q&A session. So Regina, I just want to let you know I saw your question, but we'll make sure that we'll answer that when we get to the Q&A session. So thank you for your patience on that. At this time, I want to transition over to one of our other community partners that Visalia Unified contracts with, and that's an organization called Recovery Resources. And this is a very important partnership for us because this organization specializes in providing substance counseling and support for the students within our school district. And so they're going to share a little bit about how they do that, what that entails, and how you can get connected if you need to do so. And so at this point, I'd like to transition over to Tony with Recovery Resources.
Great, thanks, Frank. I appreciate that. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Gomez, and I am a state certified drug and alcohol counselor. I'm also a federally certified substance abuse professional serving the Department of Transportation. Along with my colleagues, Chanel Guerra, Jolene Jones, and Stacy Richards, we would like to thank you for this opportunity to introduce Recovery Resources and to give you a brief description of who we are and how we strive to empower students to make positive choices through prevention and education. Recovery Resources was founded in 1999. It is a family-owned treatment program which provides both intensive outpatient treatment to adults in the community and prevention services to students in several contracted schools, school districts in and around the city of Visalia, where our main center is located. Now here's my colleague Chanel, who will go over our curriculum and explain our services a little bit further.
Hey y'all, thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is Chanel and I have a bachelor's degree in human services, and I'm also a registered drug and alcohol technician. So I would like to talk a little bit about the R1 curriculum that we use for our sessions. The curriculum is evidence-based material that helps to identify triggers, that helps to identify feelings, emotions, coping skills, healthy boundaries, positive affirmations, and risk factors like triggers and relapse. So we found that the material educates through visual, verbal, auditory, physical, and logical learning styles. R1 learning cards are used in a way that engages the students to build common vocabulary and to assist communication of thoughts, feelings, and ideas. We also integrate curriculum that is produced by NIDA, which is the National Institution on Drug Abuse. And this material is used to teach students about the effects of alcohol and drugs on the body and the adolescent mind. Open engagement and negative effects of nicotine and drugs is our primary focus. And we strive to provide awareness in all that we do. So some of the ways that we reach out to students is through Zoom. It is a free service if you're contracted with the school that your student attends. Sessions are provided during school hours only. You can get our services by contacting your student's primary counselor to inquire about the services. And then after that, the students will receive an invite through their email, so be on the lookout for that.
Hi, my name is Jolene Jones, and I am also a certified drug and alcohol counselor, and I serve the Visalia and Dinuba school districts. And I would like to discuss HIPAA with you. HIPAA is a federal law that protects information that is shared between a student and their substance abuse counselor, with some exceptions. However, parents may be involved in their child's program in two different ways. One is for the parent to attend sessions with their child, or a written consent is signed by the child that allows the counselor to communicate outside of a session. I would also like to inform you on how a student is referred to prevention program. This happens through their school counselor, through their self-referral, or a parent can request that their child be referred.
So we have included these additional resources for your convenience. Please take note of the suicide prevention hotline, as well as 211, where you can find mental health, food assistance, financial aid, and healthcare resources. Also, please take note of our contact information. We will be glad to answer any questions you may have during the Q&A portion of this webinar. On behalf of Recovery Resources, we thank you for your time.
I want to thank you, Tony, Chanel, and Jolene for sharing that information. As you all can imagine, they are an incredibly vital partner with us because we do have students that are, challenged with this issue. And so having them alongside us to be able to provide these counseling sessions is a very, very important resource that we have with our district. And I do want to share that we subcontract with Recovery Resources at each of our high schools. That includes our community day school and our alternative school, as well as VTech, which is one of our charter schools. And then we also contract with Recovery Resources at our middle school. So any middle school, high school student that is having an issue, parent of those students can reach out and we can utilize Recovery Resources for that support. If we do have an elementary student that surfaces with an issue in that area, we are able to utilize other resources to support elementary students as well. Thankfully, that's a rare occasion, but it is something that we are prepared to serve. So with that, we're going to transition into our next piece here, where we're going to allow a couple of other partners to share a few other programs, projects, and initiatives that they're working on currently to address the issue of vaping, drugs, and alcohol. This time, I'm going to pass it back over to the California Health Collaborative to talk a little bit about a project called HEAL.
Thank you for the introduction, Frank. Hi, everyone. My name is Janelle Solis. I'm a Youth Engagement Coordinator for the HEAL project. HEAL stands for Healing, Equity, Advocacy, and Leadership. I also have with me today our active youth member, Khalees. She's going to give you a quick rundown about our program mission and our objectives.
Hi, I'm Khalees. As previously mentioned, I wanted to state HEAL's mission, which is HEAL seeks to promote healthy behaviors and environments as a substance use prevention strategy for Latinx and Black youth. Along with HEAL's objectives are youth coalitions. In youth coalitions, we engage in youth advocacy, leadership, and we learn from one another. Art engagement, we engage in art as a tool for advocacy, expression, and connection. Healing circles is the most important objective to me personally because I've been in one myself. For me, it's a place to heal and talk to those in my age group. Along with this, I've built new connections and friendships. And lastly, our advocacy summit, which is engaging with those around us, builds leadership, and there's a summit every summer and one upcoming in February.
Awesome, thank you, Khalees. So we do serve the Visalia High School youth. If you are interested in having your youth join, all you have to do is text at How to Heal to 81010. We also are on Instagram and Facebook with the HEAL Project. Right here, you will find my email along with my colleagues Matthew. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the box. Thank you all for your time.
Okay, great. Well, hello again. It's Casey Pierce with Sarah County Office of Education. I am a prevention specialist with the Choices Office of the Choices Division of our Tulare County Office of Education. And within our Choices Office, we have two programs, which is mainly centered around our after-school program and our Prevention Education Intervention program. Our efforts around drug and alcohol prevention and education mainly focus with our prevention division. And within our prevention division, we have a myriad of different grants that we use to cover prevention and intervention from a myriad of different, wide variety of angles. So we have our STAKE Act grant, we have our Prop 56 grant, we have our TUPE grant, we also have our Disparities grant and a mental health education grant. And basically, like I said, from what our purpose is within the prevention division is to attack education intervention from all different myriad of angles. So we are very active in our community. We're very active in collaborating with our local law enforcement agencies as well, as far as enforcing tobacco control laws, implementing periodic compliance checks with local retailers within a certain mile radiuses of school campuses. We are very active in enforcement operations as far as like decoy sting operations with our law enforcement. So we're trying to attack this issue of tobacco and vape control and intervention from a myriad of different angles, along with a curriculum that we facilitate with grades as low as 5th graders all the way up to high school age kids. And basically what that curriculum facilitates is topics that basically just get them ready to transition to whatever the next step is in life. So whether that's them transitioning from elementary school to middle school or middle school to high school and beyond, we just want to have them be as prepared as possible for whatever the next steps are for them in life. And of course, the emphasis is to give them as much information and education on the topics of vape and tobacco control as much as possible.
Okay, so it's Bao here. I'm back, and just to talk a little bit about the Visalia Cali Youth Coalition. So the Cali Youth Coalition have been around since 2018, and they have been doing work in Visalia. And the coalition strives to create positive, long-lasting change in the community by advocating for policy, system changes, and environmental change, and building partnerships, sharing knowledge, and inspiring other youth to do the same. So the Cali Youth Coalition, they work towards creating healthier communities and focusing on core health issues like tobacco use and other drug use. So with that being said, here's some of the Youth Coalition member. They couldn't be here with us today. But some of the work that they've done in the city, they've collected data, they've actually gone out and educated elected officials during city council meeting. They've educated parents, teachers. So we keep them pretty busy year round. The coalition meets weekly on Zoom, and it's a safe space for them to share and voice their concerns in the community. So, with that being said, this flyer here can be found on the district's website. So if you hover over it and you click on this, this yellow bar here, it'll take you directly to our website where young people can sign up and really get involved in their community and how we can work together as a community to combat this epidemic. So yeah, and Joanna, a colleague of mine, runs this youth coalition. So her email address and her phone number is there, so you can get a hold of her there. Other than that, that's about it. I'll turn it over to you, Frank.
Thank you so much. You know, as you can see, folks, we have a wide variety of local organizations and committed partners that are doing some really amazing things around our area to address this issue. Obviously, those of you that are attending this evening are concerned about this issue, and so it is very encouraging to see the number of organizations and committed individuals that are working hard day in and day out to address this issue. One of the other organizations that I recently became aware of that I wanted to share with you all this evening is an organization called Parents Against Vaping e-cigs. And they are a national grassroots organization with a presence in the state of California. I think we also may have the director for California on the webinar as an attendee this evening. But I thought it'd be really neat to share with you all this organization, and that this exists because it is for parents, obviously. And I see Lori's raising her hand. Lori, give me 1 second. We'll get to the chat section and Q&A section, and I'll let you voice a question or comment. But I do want to quickly recognize, or at least surface up their web address down below, parentsagainst.vaping.org. And so please, if you can, and I think one of our colleagues at this time, if you could just post their link to their website in the Q&A, that'd be fantastic for our attendees. So check that out as well. I believe that they're always looking for members, for parents that are concerned and want to work hard themselves against this issue. So moving forward here, I also wanted to let you all know that we want to send an evaluation to all of you, and we will do so via an email after the webinar is closed today. So we would really appreciate your feedback, your thoughts, your suggestions, your comments. So please do be on the lookout via email for an evaluation to come your way, and we would just greatly appreciate your participation with that to help us as we move forward and look to do more of these in the community in the future. All right, so at this time, this is going to take us to the Q&A section of our webinar this evening. And so what I want to do is I want to quickly bring up our Q&A section here and allow you at this time for any of you that have any questions about any information that you've heard this evening or any other questions that you may have. This is the time to please post them into the question portion of the Q&A. And as you do so, I will go and ask our panelists here that are with us this evening to answer them on your behalf. I'm going to start with one of our first questions of the evening, posted a little bit earlier by one of our attendees, Regina. And she shared a little bit of her story around her son, I believe, getting involved in vaping early on. And her question was, is it possible for teachers to be aware if something like this is occurring with one of their students? And if so, then can notify the parent of that issue. And I'll start first by answering as a district employee here that question for you, Regina. So typically, we would hope that our teachers are aware enough to identify potential signs of students who might be vaping. Once there's sort of a warning or a symptom, we want to investigate. We want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and we're not assuming before we really identify that that is the case. And once we do, a teacher would bring that to the attention of one of our administrators at the school site. The administrator would then further do the investigation, and as they identify that yes, this is the case, then they would immediately reach out to you as a parent and share with you what they've identified. And then at that point, you would have the opportunity to hear the list of resources that we have available as a district to be able to get them into substance counseling, if you so desire to do so with recovery resources. So that's typically how it would work. I would share with you that last year, we were able to train all of our high school certificated staff, all of our teachers, with the help of the California Health Collaborative around the signs and symptoms of vaping. And so we hope to be able to continue to do that in the future. This year, it's been tough because of the nature of our district this year with the COVID-19 pandemic and our distance learning structure. We haven't been able to do the professional development with teachers as we have in a normal year, in a normal structure. But we are looking to roll out some new things this spring, and we hope to continue to educate our teachers so that they are aware of those signs and symptoms. In fact, we have a task force. It's called our Visalia Unified School District Vape Task Force, where we have a number of individuals that are here this evening with us that are members, but also others experts in the work that are members of that. And we are building out some resources In fact, we've got a signs and symptom checklist that we're working on right now that we would then send out to all of our teachers and classified staff across the district so that they are building their awareness to be able to recognize those things and then be able to proceed with sharing that with admin and then admin sharing that with you as a parent. So that was probably a really long-winded answer to your question, but I wanted to make sure that I covered all those bases. So we have another question here from Jackie. Actually, it's really just a comment. So thank you, Jackie, for that. We appreciate that. And then Joy asked, what is HTC? So I want to pass it to any of our panelists who may want to answer that for us.
I can answer that for you. This is Chanel from Recovery Resources. I'm thinking the letters were kind of mixed up and it's THC. So that's going to be tetrahydrocannabinol, also known as marijuana. So this is the main ingredient or main substance in THC that gets the person high when they smoke it. So yeah, simply marijuana.
Great, thank you for that, Chanel. I also see a comment here from Josh, who I do know, and he works with Native youth here in the community, and he's looking to collaborate. So Josh, I would say a big thumbs up. I'm going to share my contact info here in a minute, so make sure that you reach out to me via email, and so we can connect with any resources that would be helpful to the work that you're doing as well. That would be fantastic. So again, I do want to mention that the parentsagainst.vaping.org website was posted on the Q&A, so feel free to check that out. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez, for doing that, one of our administrators out at Golden West High School. If there are any other questions from our attendees at this time, this is the time to enter them in, and we would love to answer them for you. So it looks like we got Jackie and Josh with a good opportunity to connect as well. So please do reach out to each other if you can. That would be fantastic. Reach out to me if you need me to connect you with each other. I love the fact that this webinar can serve as an opportunity to connect people that are interested in doing this work together. Can be that vehicle for that. So thank you. We do have another question here from Madison. So where can THC affect the brain at? So where in the brain does THC does its work, does its job, and how can you tell if it created or if it had a negative impact or had some damage on the brain? So if any of our panelists would like to answer that, and I'm more than happy to ask the question again if need be.
This is very technical with the science and, you know, the different parts of the brain. I don't have an answer for this, like technically, like which part of the brain. Does anybody?
I can answer that. I'll answer that for you, Frank. THC affects dopamine in the brain. It can cause what they call amotivational syndrome, which means they don't have no motivation, muscle coordination, concentration, memory. It's more prevalent with people who are under the age of 24 because their brains are underdeveloped. So they don't have the protective layer over their brain cells that an adult has. So they get a higher concentration of everything, the THC and any other negative chemicals that are in that particular marijuana.
Jolene, on that note, is there a way medically to tell if damage has occurred in the brain because of that substance being taken in, or to what degree there's been damage?
You know what? Yeah, you can. You could get like a PET scan or something like that. That's pretty high tech. You will probably see mostly with memory loss. That's going to be like one of the biggest things right there. Is it permanent? Sometimes not. It just depends on how much they use, the concentration of THC. Yeah, so it just depends. That just all depends. But yeah, I mean, if you wanted to go in and get a PET scan and have all of the chemicals shown up on a screen, you probably could do that. Okay. Otherwise, time's going to tell. You know, it's just a time thing.
Also, if I may add a little bit to that, Frank, in regards to that question, the specific area that THC affects is the hippocampus of the brain. And the hippocampus is usually where we are able to develop motor skills, we're able to develop memory skills, and over a long-term period of use, that area becomes damaged. Sometimes it's an irreversible damage. Unfortunately, right now, the level of THC that is being produced chemically is much higher than our parents or even our grandparents' marijuana that they used to be, because everything is now being fabricated in a laboratory where the THC content is through the roof. So the damage can be much faster, much greater, and more irreversible than it used to be.
Thank you for that, Tony. And that is a scary thing to know, is that the potency is coming at much higher doses. So when you know, I have not, I've not used a vape pen before, in all transparency, but I can imagine that when you ingest it, it probably comes in a little bit different way. And in that case, you might get a lot more than you think that you're getting, right? So if a student doesn't realize the amount of potency that they're getting when they inhale, that can be an issue. And I think Bao talked about this, that a student can go through an entire puff bar in a day, so to speak. And so you're just taking in, the students are taking in so much more than they realize and that we realize, which can be a very scary thing. And really circumvent or speed up the addiction process as well, correct?
You know what, I'd like to add one more thing to that, Frank, if I may.
Of course.
They are linking marijuana use to schizophrenia with teenagers.
Wow.
Especially if there's a family history, a predisposition for schizophrenia, the level of THC in marijuana, because marijuana is classified as a hallucinogen. So they are linking those two.
Wow, that's scary. I hadn't heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Go ahead, Tony, sorry.
Oh, no, actually, I wanted to go back a little bit to what Jolene talked about as far as how it affects the dopamine chemicals in our brain. Basically, what happens is that the THC replaces the dopamine content by raising its level and taking a different effect in the brain. Kind of goes into the reward system, which creates for a person to receive the THC level, which is much higher than the natural dopamine in our brain, and into our reward system. It becomes a very addictive thing if we are exposed to it for a long period of time. And that's usually where somebody becomes addicted to that substance, because it's mimicking our natural dopamine, but it's a chemical-based dopamine that we're receiving.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you all for sharing on that question. One thing I wanted to add to that is, are we aware, I have heard this, but I've not seen evidence necessarily, but are we aware if vaping devices are now being used to ingest other substances, more illicit drugs in different forms? And is that becoming more of a popular trend that we might need to be on the lookout for?
So as far as I'm aware, Frank, I know that people have ingested methamphetamine, so meth, through a vape, heating up the liquid and ingesting that. That's the one that I've heard of. I would imagine it could be also done with heroin and other things like so.
That is such a scary thing, because again, the vape device allows for students to be able to utilize or ingest the substance in a much more secretive way, right? It's much harder to see, to catch that, versus a traditional way of using methamphetamine or using heroin, right? And so now not knowing what's actually in the vape device becomes a lot more scarier when it could be more illicit drugs.
Can I mention something else, Frank?
Please.
Is that somebody could also get laced You know, it's very common now. People are getting laced. A person could think they're ingesting vape juice, but are ingesting vape and meth, you know, because you can fill up those vapes with your own juice, your own liquids, and you can add whatever you want to them. So yeah,
Chanel,
that's another scary thing.
would you mind sharing with our attendees what the term laced means?
So laced means when somebody gets let's say a joint or a cigarette, and they purchase it from their local dealer, and there's an added substance in there without the person knowing, the person that bought it. Or it could be, you know, a friend's vape and their aunt or uncle were using it to smoke meth in, and it could get laced like that accidentally. So yeah, getting laced is like sliding one on the down low without telling the person, and the person not realizing it till they feel the effects of the substance.
Right. So I just want to invite attendees, if you have any other questions, please do enter them into the Q&A. We'd love to hear any more questions that you have, as we have our expert panelists here with us. So Jennifer has a question and wants to know, how is it being sold to students today, particularly with COVID and the lack of campus contact or access? As parents, you know, what are we watching for with sales, and where are they getting it? This is a great question. I'd like to go ahead and start. I'd also like to offer our assistant principal at Golden West High School, Drew Hernandez, if he's on, he can also answer this as well, because he has a lot of experience with this being on campus. But, you know, we're definitely seeing social media being the primary vehicle to sales. We've got a day and age where, you know, a student can, you know, I think it was mentioned a little bit earlier, I'm not sure where, but where a student can jump on Instagram or Snap, and they can see somebody advertising, make a quick shout out like, hey, I need something, or, you know, hit me up or DM me or whatever. And all of a sudden you got a transaction taking place virtually where there's going to be a connect. And, you know, hey, they're telling you, hey, I'm going to run over to so-and-so's house. I'll be back in a little bit, or I'm going to go to the store, or I'm going to walk down the block. And for all you know, they're going to connect with somebody that's going to sell them something they shouldn't be having. So social media is probably one of the top vehicles to sell right now, whether you're on campus or during the COVID era of not being on campus. And one of the things that we have noticed, parents, we really want to share with you, please, please be conscious of giving your students money, what they're using it for. You may even want to ask for some sort of receipt or verification of what they are using that money for, because particularly when they're walking out the door, they're going to school on campus, when we're back on campus, lots of times transactions are happening at school campus, and these kids got hundreds of dollars. So you definitely want to keep a track of the paper trail as much as you can. That's one area that you can look out for. I'll step back and invite anybody else that may want to answer to that as well.
Yeah, thank you. This is Drew Hernandez, assistant principal at Golden West High School. Frank said most of what I agree with. What we see on campus is they're using the social media platform Instagram to either distribute or buy the product. I know this is a new age, and it requires parents to do a lot. One thing that you can do to be proactive would be to be on your kids' social media accounts. There's also restrictions on you can set on their cell phones, so they can only access certain media platforms and at certain times of the day. I know that's asking a lot, but if you're suspecting that they're doing those kinds of things, there's no such thing as privacy when they're under 18, and it's definitely within your right to get into those accounts. I will champion what Frank said about the money. In most of my cases, when I have found a student that is vaping or has products on them, they have cash, and not just $5 to $10. They have lots of cash. There is no reason for a student to be carrying money on a daily basis of that amount for two reasons. One, they can purchase things that they shouldn't be, and for two, they tend to flaunt that money which also makes them a target on campus for other people that want to take that money. So, you know, stay involved, track their money, make sure, like Frank said, they're showing you receipts of what they're buying. If they're buying stuff on campus, we have a student store, they can write them out, a receipt, that's no problem. If you have students that are driving, they're off campus, I would suggest, if it's possible, to open up a bank account and get them a debit card, and then you can actually see the transactions they're making, and that also helps them move on to adulthood. And that's all for me.
Can I add one more thing? This goes a little bit further into observing your children and what to look for. Just like the devices that are being used to mask what they're using, such as, for example, what we saw on this webinar, such as the pen or other devices that you would never think could be used as a vape pen. Also look for what kind of language your children are using. And what I mean by that is, if you go through their social media and they're speaking language, or they're using words that you are not quite familiar with, or don't quite understand why or how those particular phrases or words fit into their conversation, you know, sometimes they will use different words to describe what they're looking for or what they're asking for. And a lot of the times that could be a drug. There's a thing called the Drug Urban Dictionary that you can either Google or look up, and it will give you up-to-date verbiage on what kind of language is being used to describe different types of drugs, so that way you can become more aware of what your children are saying to each other or to others.
Thank you, Tony, for sharing that. Yep, definitely check the language code. That could be a sign for sure. I also want to mention that one of our other assistant principals that joined us this evening, Mr. Marroquin at Redwood High School, mentioned that Snapchat is one of the social media platforms that's used frequently with the sale of drugs, because with Snapchat, your chats are only on temporarily and you can't go back and bring them back up. So it's a much safer route or platform for both sellers and users to make transactions. So if your son, daughter has Snapchat, you know, do what you can to be vigilant in terms of looking at those things. We have another attendee that's asked a question: what happens if the cartridge is laced and a child smokes it or, you know, ingests it? What kind of effects or what would happen to them? And how can you tell from their behavior? What are some symptoms and signs? And this might be just depending on what it was laced with. So we might want to speak to some of the illicit drug behaviors, signs, and symptoms.
So if they inhale what's in the cartridge, they're going to get high, and it could possibly even cause death, because there's no measuring amount of how much of the substance that is put in with the vape juice. So some telltale signs of methamphetamine use would be like anxiousness, agitation, they're not sleeping, they're not eating when they normally would, severe weight loss, and some of the telltale signs of heroin use, or even Xanax. Xanax is a pretty popular abused drug now, and that can also cause an overdose or death. So with those drugs, they're usually nodding out. What I mean by nodding out is like falling asleep at inappropriate times, just while they're sitting there, while they're sitting at the dinner table, and just nodding out. So another telltale sign would be hiding in their room, you know, being very secluded, unable to speak, or slurred kind of language that's coming from them. And with all of them, there's really a disconnect from everybody and everyone. They're not participating in school activities that they used to. They have different friends. They're hanging out with older people, those kinds of things. The list of change in behavior is is almost endless, and you constantly have to be on your toes when observing your child. Yeah, so that's just in a nutshell. And I touched on a very, very few signs.
Thank you, Chanel. Okay, at this time, we're going to look to close our webinar this evening. Again, we want to thank all of our panelists and all of our attendees. I do want to just remind us that via the VUSD.org website, the vaping webinar link is posted in the Q&A, where we have lots of resources for us, for all of you attendees, by which to take a look at and use as you see fit. So, and also we will be recording this website, this webinar, and will be on the website. I want to provide my contact info as Director of Student Services here at the district. So I'll leave this up for a brief minute. For anybody that wants to reach out to me personally, either by phone or by email, I am more than happy to converse and share and answer questions, particularly if it's about a student that attends our district. I can give you lots of information about other services and our processes that we use to support our students here in our district. There are lots of other efforts that our district is doing outside of what we discussed tonight. I'd love to share that with you. You can peruse the website a little bit. You'll see the other efforts that are occurring within our district. So please feel free to reach out to me at any time you think it would be beneficial for you. And with that, we just want to thank everyone for attending this evening, taking the time out of your busy night and taking in this information. And the most important thing is, as you take in this information, that then you begin to share it with others. Share the resources, share the website links, share the knowledge, because the more that we do that, the more people become better aware and better equipped to recognize and to help support and address this epidemic that we have around vaping. Vaping has become the #1 suspendable offense for high school students in Visalia Unified and across the nation. And so this has been a rising trend. And so as you can tell, this is a very, very big commitment for our school district to address, but we can't do it alone. We need our parents to also be partners with us in this. And together, I think we can really make inroads and we can stop harmful things from happening with our kids, your kids, and our students in the future by doing that. And we have amazing partners that are willing to help and be a part of the process of support as well. So with that, again, I want to just thank everybody this evening. I want to thank all of our partners and our panelists, all of our contributors this evening. And I want to wish everyone a great evening. And please do reach out if you think we can be of benefit. And with that, we will say good night, everyone. Thank you very much. And be safe.